It all stems back to my mum and dad's childhood trauma, resulted in them dealing with those feelings with drugs and addictions and stuff. So
let's get on to your first learning around failure, which is learning to become more compassionate about your dad's addiction. You say that you were angry as a teenager. What form did that anger take?
So the anger comes from the constant kind of resentment and disappointment of relapse. Like when you're living with someone with addiction and they're clean and you think everything's great in your life suddenly feels stable, any moment it can just completely change. And suddenly my mum's kicked him out. He's living with his mum, or he's in a rehab, or he's on the streets, whatever, And so it was really, I suppose, always anxious. And then as a kid, I kind of absorbed it as a little kid. But by the time I got to a teenager, I was just done. I was like, I'm fed up with this. Why aren't we enough? Why can't you love us? And just pushed him away, I suppose. And I realised, and I heard this lovely term once that changed my kind of perception, that the antidote to addiction is connection. So rather than go, I will only love you when you're clean, I will only be around you when you're not using drugs, that's conditional love. Whereas unconditional love is like, look, I know you're struggling, and I want to be there for you, and like giving him a cuddle and saying, come round, let's spend some time together. And that took me a long time to get to that point. I'm very wise now, but it was years of like really angry at my dad and resenting him, and just genuinely thinking, is he going to shoot up tonight and die, And like and I realised I'm a carer, even now I still worry about my dad all the time. Think about him every day, like, because he's never out of the woods. You always, he's up and down with his, depression and stuff. So you sort of worry about these things,
Is he sober now?
Yeah, he's clean, he's sober, and we got a great relationship. And I really am so grateful, like when I talk about gratitude, that he survived addiction, and that he, because heroin's a tough drug to beat. Not many people can come out of it, and he's still got his health as well, which is great. So he's still pretty young. We've still got a lot of years together, hopefully, and we have a good relationship now. But the compassion part comes from age and like wisdom, and sort of reading about, trauma and childhood addiction, and like great people like Gabor Mate, and like people I listen to, like, wow, that makes sense. And I don't want to repeat the cycle with my children and stuff. So yeah, compassion grows, I think. I think as we age, as we grow, you become more compassionate towards everybody and the world, I think. And that's positive. If you've got a growth mindset, I think.
Did you witness him taking drugs?
Never witnessing like physically like shooting up. It was always done behind closed doors, maybe in a bathroom where he'd go out and come back. But definitely the after effects, because when you're doing that sort of drug, it's not like you're running around chatting, you're really fun dad, and let's play games. Like, he'd be asleep like a zombie sort of thing. So that was always tough, because I had so much energy as a kid. And so when your dad's there on the sofa, like just like monged out, that's really hard, isn't it? Because he's there, but he's not really there. And then my mum was the opposite, so erratic, so chaotic, OCD, anxious, eating disorders, and like couldn't sit still, and was cleaning the house and smoking cigarettes and drinking. She lived off cigarettes and Coca-Cola, my mum. So she would drink like 10 cans of Coca-Cola a day, and really I was in such an unhealthy environment. And I do think, how have I come out of that? You know what I mean? And I love food and exercise, and I'm not an addict in that sense. And I've always steered away from those kind of addictions. But it all stems back to my mum and dad's childhood trauma, resulted in them dealing with those feelings with drugs and addictions and stuff. So I kind of used exercise to, like, I always talk about soothing myself with exercise, because I would smash myself, like run to school at like 10 years old and play sport all day long and exhaust myself, because I just felt like it released it all from my body.
How did your brothers respond to it? You mentioned Nicky, and you've got a younger brother, George.
Yeah, older brother Nicky is 18 months older than me, and my little brother's 10 years younger. So we're all from the same mum and dad, and they're not together now. But yeah, we've had different experiences, because Nicky was 18 months older, so he remembers more, he saw more and heard more. And he was much more, I think he bottled up those emotions a lot more than me. Whereas I was like much more hyperactive, probably ADHD, and angry and shouty, and Nicky was very much wouldn't talk about his feelings. My little brother George, I think he got kind of a bit of both. He had my mum during the week and my dad during the weekends. And we've all kind of had a bit of a different experience, really.
Because I read somewhere that you didn't tell anyone at school what was going on. Is that right?
Yeah, because you can't really, can you? When you're a kid, I mean, this is obviously like 1985 I was born, so the stigma around mental health was one thing. And obviously, imagine being like a 7-year-old kid and going into school and saying, oh, the police knocked down our door last night. I just thought they were going to take me away from my mum and dad. If you keep asking me these questions, I'm going to probably crack, because it's making me feel quite emotional. But
I'm so sorry.
Sorry, no, I can talk about it. But it does make me feel quite emotional, like thinking myself in that situation, especially with kids now. Like, I can't imagine living in a house like that with my kids now. Like, it would be so difficult for them. Yeah, you just couldn't talk about it. And so I was the naughty kid that just like stick him in detention, put him in isolation. Like, he's just a clown. He's not. But really, I was just a kid that wanted someone to say, "What's going on, Joe? Like, talk to me." Do you know what I mean? But you seek attention in other ways, I think. So yeah, I was a nice boy, but I was disruptive and a clown and attention seeking, and that affected my probably grades and subjects in things like maths and English. But put me in sport or PE or put me in technology, I'm building like something with my hands or art, I loved it. And even cooking, I remember thinking I loved, they used to call it home economics, didn't they? Like cooking, making like cookies and things. So I was very much more practical. That was that energy that I just needed to be like hands-on, as opposed to, I couldn't focus and concentrate on those things because of probably what was going on in my head, just living in this state of like, oh, what's going on, and going home to my mum's, because I couldn't go in the house and be a normal kid and like running my shoes on and throw toys around. It was like, I'd be like hoovering my bedroom and stuff and like making my bed a couple of times a day, and it would have to be super neat. Like, so weird talking about it now because it felt normal at the time. But I'd have to hoover the carpet like really young and stuff, like over and over again, because that was my mum's way of controlling, you know, the only thing she controlled was the food she ate or didn't eat, and, you know, the house and cleaning.
Wow.
And I understand now why she went. I'm so glad that, put it this way, if my mum turned to drugs, my life would have been very different. Like, thank God she had something different, because if my mum and dad were both addicts using, one of them would have ended up dead, and probably would have been put in care 100%, because she was always clean, always the one like keeping the house tidy, looking after us, you know. And that was there. She's so pivotal, I think, in that. So I'm really glad she didn't go down that path, you know, for us.
Thanks for tuning in. And if you found this video enjoyable, be sure to check out the full episode on your preferred podcast platform. And make sure you're following How to Fail on social media for additional content and updates.